broadcasting live 4 days a week worldwide
from the sunny beaches of Southern California.
This is ExtremeHealthRadio.com.
Hey, you're listening to Ty Bollinger of CancerTruth.net. You're also listening to Justin and Kate with Extreme Health Radio. These guys are great. Enjoy listening to them. I always do.
Thank you so much. Wow, my voice just did something right there, didn't it?
Sound like a teenage boy.
I just woke up. I know. I'm not 14 anymore.
That's great.
That was the strangest little thing.
Oh, that made me laugh.
Going through puberty here.
Well, even if you're late, you're going through it.
Oh, my goodness. Well, I was going to say thank you, everybody, for joining us. I really appreciate that until my voice cracked. This is episode number 233 of Extreme Health Radio, so thank you so much for joining us. It's Monday, April 14th, 2014. That's right?
That's right.
Okay, good.
Episode 233.
Episode 233, and today we have Barbara Allen, and this is going to be a really great guest, really great show. I'm really excited to have her on. Her website's ConqueringArthritis.com, and we'll introduce her in just a minute. We'll be talking about how she overcame her arthritis, and so this is going to be a really good show. If you'd like to listen to the show live, you can do so on Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday at 9 a.m. Pacific. And you can join the chat room. And then on our Friday show, you can call in and get your questions answered. On the other shows, there's a chat room there. You can ask your questions that way. So that's a great way to join the show. You can also send a pre-recorded voicemail message into us when we have one of those today. You can do that on the right side of our website. And you can also send an email if you'd like to Justin at extremehealthradio.com.
Or me, Kate, Kate, at extremehealthradio.com.
And let's see, we've got some great guests coming up, as we always do. Let's take a look at our schedule here and let everybody know. On Wednesday, April 16th, Greg Catton.
Oh, nice.
And we've been using some of his black salve, haven't we?
Yeah. Been sharing it with a few friends, too. They've had amazing results. That'll be great.
Yeah, he's got some really great Amazonian herbs and black salves and these pastes that he makes from the jungles of Ecuador for cancer, skin cancer, things like that.
Yeah.
Crazy, right?
Nice.
And then we've got Dr. John Bergman, who's a chiropractor just north of where we are in Orange County, California. And he does a lot of work with cancer, arthritis, blood sugar, cholesterol. He's just a really smart guy, and you can look him up on YouTube. Dr. John Bergman, so that would be a good show. And then we have Carrie Rivera, been doing some really great work with autistic kids in Mexico.
Yeah, she's been a hard one to catch up with, but we finally got her on, huh?
Yeah, right?
That'll be good.
She's using MMS on these little children, having some really good success with autism. Crazy. So we've got lots of shows coming up. If you'd like to stay up to date with everything we have going on, join us on Facebook. Join the community on there. That way you can keep up to date with everything we have going on the show. You can keep up to date with our past shows, our archive shows, upcoming shows, all that good stuff. So don't forget to do that. And today I'm really excited. We have Barbara Allen on the show, and her website is, ConqueringArthritis.com, and she's written a book called Conquering Arthritis as well. And at 25 years old, she had debilitating, crippling form of arthritis that put her in a wheelchair. She was studying molecular biology. She had all these great plans to do all these great things, and all of a sudden she was stricken down with arthritis, and she was actually, I think I just said, in a wheelchair.
Man.
Yeah, amazing story. So I want to thank you, Barbara, for being on the show today, and how are you doing?
Well, I am doing great. Every day since I've gotten out of that wheelchair has been great.
Oh, my gosh. Every day is a blessing, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, wow. So you had the initial diagnosis at 25?
Yeah, 25, and it took me 11 years to figure out everything I needed to totally heal. And my doctors told me that there was nothing more that could be done for me, and I refused to accept that. I spent years researching both the lay literature and the medical literature to see what alternative cures might work. And I had something called reactive arthritis. So my arthritis started with food poisoning. I was on a vacation. I got bacterial dysentery. That took about a week to clear, but 6 months later, I went from, walking to the university every day. That was about a 3-mile round trip, and swimming and going on long bike rides to, 3 days after it hit, I was having trouble walking across my living room without passing out from the pain.
Oh my gosh. So was that a form, the reactive arthritis of rheumatoid as well, or is it different?
It's not exactly the same thing. It's very similar. One of the main differences is what triggers reactive arthritis. It's some sort of infection. With rheumatoid, you don't often know. Usually there's some sort of stress. So you'll lose your job, or somebody in your family will die, or you'll go on a wonderful world vacation but get really run down when you're doing it, or maybe you actually are exposed, like I was, to something like dysentery, but you just don't make the connection.
So what did you eat? Where were you? What did you eat?
I was at a music festival in the woods in Michigan with about 5,000 other people.
Oh, wow.
And there was a big outbreak of Shigella. The organizers were doing everything they could to keep that from happening. They knew that a few people had it. The CDC did a big study. I was part of that. And reactive arthritis happens in about 1 to 10% of people that get this particular infection. I actually felt a little bit better because a few months later, all the Green Bay Packers got a salmonella infection from eating contaminated airplane food.
Oh, my gosh.
Goodness, wow. That's
I don't
crazy.
think they ended up with arthritis, luckily. We need them to play.
So what happens in your case, or in the case of people that do get either the rheumatoid or the reactive, is there some kind of bacteria that's sitting on the food that reacts to the gut or something, or what happens?
What happens is, and it's very interesting because I was studying molecular biology, and I was working with fruit flies in something called a heat shock response. And so whenever our bodies are put under stress, suddenly we make certain types of proteins. And one of the heat shock proteins in humans is very similar to the ones in these bacteria. And so if you start attacking the bacterial protein, sometimes you'll also start an autoimmune reaction in your own body that, as long as you're in pain and you stay stressed, goes on forever.
Oh my goodness! Wow. So these proteins get formed or somehow get react in the body with the bacteria. Is that what's going on?
Yeah, you're mounting a very good response to fight off the bacteria, but because you start doing friendly fire to your own body, and your own body continues to be there as a target, you have to do something to interrupt that cycle to get out of the autoimmune disease.
Oh. So why do you think certain people, like, let's say, for example, your friend, if you were with a friend at the time and she ate the same food as you that could have had this bacteria, why do you think certain people get it and certain people don't?
I think there are lots of different risk factors, which in one sense is good because we can control many of them. But one risk factor is your genetics. Mm-hmm. So there's certain genetics that make you more susceptible to autoimmune diseases. Another risk factor is actually your childhood, because there are ways that we learn emotionally to deal with stress that can either be very healthy or they can set us up for chronic illness like autoimmune disease.
Oh, man.
Wow.
And, some of it is just where we grew up and what chemicals we were exposed to. I grew up in Huntsville, Alabama, and a good part of my high school class died within the first 10 years of graduation, and I think it's because we were near a Superfund dump site.
Oh,
so,
goodness.
that affects your immune system, too. And my brother has type 1 diabetes, yet there's no history of that in our family, other than, something happened when we moved to that town.
Yeah.
Oh, my gosh. Were all those people who unfortunately passed away, were they mostly autoimmune, or was it more a cancer situation?
Mostly it was cancer, but cancer happens because you mess up the immune system. Autoimmune diseases happen because you mess up the immune system.
Yeah. Wow. So
My gosh.
With someone who is recently diagnosed and they're listening to this, or maybe they've had it for a while, I guess you could really go back and look at their own life and think there's literally thousands of different mitigating factors, aren't there? Like you just said.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, for someone like, for example, me and my brother lives up in Seattle, and so he's exposed to different chemicals, different environmental toxins, different weather. I mean, the list just can go on and on for people, huh?
Yes, it can.
Wow, that is just crazy.
So in your case, when you had this infection and you thought, like, basically you said you took some precautions to try to deal with it, and then did you start to feel better? Like, did you think that cured it and you moved on with your life and it hit you again later? Or
Well, this started six weeks after the infection, and then for 4.5 years I was in chronic pain. Sometimes it was better and sometimes it was worse, but because I didn't know what my food and chemical triggers were, which was something I could control, I didn't know how to control them. I didn't even know what they were. I kept getting worse and worse and worse. And it turns out, and this is not the case for everyone, but I had some of the best doctors in the world. I was in Washington University in St. Louis, and that's a premier medical research institution. I was lucky. I got a diagnosis within 3 weeks of this happening. But then when I didn't get well, they started blaming me. They said it was in my head. They said I was a slacker. You know, it didn't matter that we had blood results and, you know, lab results that were saying, no, there's definitely something going on. But my disease wasn't behaving like they wanted it to, so they blamed me.
Wow. So how long did it take from the initial diagnosis to when you actually started making some real progress?
At the 4.5 year point, I had I went on my very first juice fast, and I had been reading 2 different books at once, and if I hadn't, I never would have figured out the pattern I needed to get well. But one is There Is a Cure for Arthritis by Paavo Airola, and he talks about the 100-year history in Europe of using fasting at these spa clinics to cure rheumatoid arthritis.
Wow.
And so I went on a juice fast similar to what he describes in his book, and I was also reading another book about delayed food and chemical sensitivities. So I knew that when I came off the fast, if it worked, I needed to be really careful about what I reintroduced. So the reason most people stay sick forever is they don't cut out every single one of their food and chemical triggers, so they keep staying inflamed. And so for me, it was a miracle. When I went on the fast so it usually takes about 3 days for the food that's causing the problem to clear your body, and fasting itself is more anti-inflammatory than any known drug. So that was the first time in 4.5 years that I was pain-free, and it was a miracle. I was very weak because I had been very still during that time because movement made my pain worse.
And
that was the...
I'm sorry, how long was that fast again? And that was on like a green...
On day 3 is when I started getting the relief, and I did a 5-day fast.
5-day fast. And what types of juices were you making primarily?
I used... So I was making it fresh with carrot, cabbage, and celery.
Okay.
And I was very lucky. I didn't know at the time that those 3 things can sometimes trigger inflammation in people. I just happened to pick 3 vegetables that work for me.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, cabbage is really a healing food, isn't it, for the gut?
Yes, cabbage is very healing for the gut. And I was very amused because after I healed, I told my German grandmother, my Oma, about how healing cabbage was, and she knew that, but she never thought to tell me. Sometimes things get lost through the generations.
Isn't that wow? Wow.
She could have saved you a lot of heartache.
I know. She could have saved you a lot of heartache. Yeah, I've heard about cabbage from, I think it was Jay Cordes, a juice man, and I think there's some doctor that he was working with in the 1920s or 30s or something, and they were healing people's ulcers with cabbage juice and digestive issues with cabbage juice. It's pretty... So what did you find in the juice that was actually causing problems? Was it the carrots, do you think?
Well, for me, that was the perfect mix. It didn't cause any problems at all. The cabbage helped heal my gut. Juicing is alkaline, and that when you're in a lot of pain, your body goes acidic.
Okay.
So it helps correct that. Just getting your pH back in the right levels can help lower your levels of inflammation significantly.
Okay, so
it was the perfect cure for me, but what is also true is it then took me 2.5 years of fasting once a month to figure out all my triggers, and that was pretty grueling. I mean, it was totally worth it for me at the time. I just thought it was the greatest thing.
Yeah.
But, it's funny how fate works. In 2004, I got bitten by a mosquito that had a neuroinvasive form of West Nile virus.
Oh, my goodness. How do you know that?
So, how do I know that?
Yeah.
I was also part of the study again because I had moved to Phoenix and there was a mass outbreak in Maricopa County, and so I went into the hospital with meningitis. They were able to figure out what it was, and I had a mosquito bite on my hand.
Wow. And so when was this in your arthritis journey?
This was years after I had healed from the arthritis, but sometimes very unpleasant events, you can see kind of a guiding hand behind them later.
Uh-huh.
And I had a hard time recovering from that. I had ataxia, which meant that when I tried to walk or use my hands or arms, I was very jerky, like somebody with Parkinson's.
Mm-hmm.
And, for about 3 months. And I finally went to an alternative doctor who said, take the alcat test. We need to figure out why you're not healing, and I think you've still got inflammation in your nervous system and your nerves.
Mm-hmm.
So I said, well, I've read about that test. It's not supposed to be good. And she said, do your homework. And my brain was still so scattered from how the meningitis had affected it that I didn't have the brain capacity or the willpower to go through the whole fasting again. So I said, okay, I'm just going to take this blood test. And I realized, because it tested for over 200 different foods and chemicals, that in a single blood test, I got more information that was useful for curing chronic inflammation, like is in arthritis, but it also turns out it's also if you've got chronic inflammation in your nervous system because you've got a virus that's messing up your nerves,
right.
It'll get rid of that. So I got more information from that one blood test than 2 years of very disciplined experimentation.
Oh, my goodness.
And so that's what I use with my clients now because, it's amazing. Seven days after you cut out the things that are triggering your inflammation, it's like a miracle has happened. And so I didn't have to, I'm glad that I was a pioneer and I was able to get well with the arthritis, but then to find that you can hop on a jet and get all the way, from New York to L.A. and not take, 2 years.
Yeah. That's amazing. Barbara, it sounds like you're popping just a little bit. You might be a little bit close to the microphone there. But,
all right.
Yeah, so when you were doing this test, I guess that kind of like it cuts through a lot of the things you were doing because, like you just said, you can get on a plane and fly to New York instead of drive. If people are diagnosed with arthritis, do you think that this would be a good test for them to take right away?
Yeah, that's where I start most people. I do want to have the caveat that it's very important if you have arthritis not to think that all medical doctors are bad and are not useful and are evil. That is not my idea at all. It's really important to get an accurate diagnosis. So there are things where this wouldn't be the right place to start. Like if your arthritis is from Lyme's disease, you need to know that, and you absolutely need to get treated for that. And I don't care how bad antibiotics are in general, that's exactly what you need to get well, and you won't get well if you don't get treated. So, do that and then do everything you need to do to get your flora back into balance afterwards.
Yeah. So it's amazing what you did, doing all this work on yourself for 2 years. I think that's what happens with a lot of people is that they realize there's a long road ahead of them, and then they see how daunting it is. And, a lot of people are unwilling to go through that much work, aren't they?
They are. Either they don't know it's even possible. I think the biggest reason people don't heal from arthritis is they don't realize that there's any hope to do that. And part of why I wrote my book was I was enraged by what my doctors said, that there was nothing more that can be done, because that's not true, and they should be giving people hope. They should be saying, we have these drug solutions, and if they fail, we have these surgery solutions, but there's a whole world of other things you can be doing in addition.
Wow, this is a good time to take a break. This is so interesting. So interesting. A lot of people with arthritis these days. How many people have you been able to figure out? Do you know how many people in the U.S. have arthritis?
1 in 6, so over 52 million people have arthritis, and the numbers are growing at a really alarming rate. And when we come back from break, I can tell you some of the factors that are causing that.
Yeah,
I'd love to hear.
Yeah, that sounds interesting. I'm wondering why that number is growing.
Huge.
1 in 6.
That's huge.
That's amazing. Okay, we're with Barbara Allen and her website. Make sure to check that out, conqueringarthritis.com. You can also get her book as well, Conquering Arthritis, and just fascinating stuff. So if you know anybody that is dealing with, I guess, osteo or rheumatoid or reactive arthritis, send them this interview, this podcast, episode 233, as well as her website so they can check it out and get some hope. So when we come back from the break, we're going to talk more about why so many people are being diagnosed with arthritis these days. And we have a listener question as well that we're going to be playing for Barbara. So we'll be right back right after this break. I have to say, I have been absolutely loving this product by Tristan Truscott and Peter Ragnar called Good Morning, Good Evening Qigong. If you want to listen to the interview we did with Tristan, you can go to extremehealthradio.com/127. And Qigong is a great way to de-stress the body. And as you know, there's a huge component to disease caused by stress, and stress is a huge factor in how we live our lives and the amount of energy we have and the amount of vitality we have. And so, Dr. Shade, what do you think about Qigong?
People come to me and they're really sick and they got this blown out neurological system and all this toxicity. And I tell them, you need to do Qigong, Tai Chi. You need to do these things that settle down and restore your neurology, because it puts together all the parts. It puts you back into that state where you can start to detoxify. And so I highly, highly recommend all that.
And what about you, Kit Campbell? What do you think about Qigong? Do you like it as well?
Qigong is amazing. And the reason that I believe it to be amazing is everything here is energy. That is a scientific fact, if there ever is one. So when you're practicing Qigong, you're actually drawing energy into your body. Your intention, whatever your intention is behind any action, will determine the level of energy, type of energy that you absorb into your body. So your intention behind is very important, just like thought. So when you're practicing Qigong, you're actually bringing energy in and you're bringing out the stuff that might be a bit stale. With Tai Chi, it's totally different. The energy runs underneath the skin because it's more of a martial. This is the Chinese understanding, by the way. It's more of a martial art. So Qigong is very, very good for bringing that energy into the body, and just fantastic.
If you're interested in picking up this Qigong course by Tristan Truscott and Peter Ragnar, go to extremehealthradio.com/Qigong. That's QIGONG. And you can learn more about it. There's a great video on that page, and you can learn more about it on that page. And I highly, highly recommend this product. I love it myself. So go ahead and check that out. extremehealthradio.com/Qigong.
Listener supported. Extreme Health Radio. Opening minds and transforming lives worldwide. Don't forget to join our thriving community for health tips, inspiration, and show updates at extremehealthradio.com/Facebook.
Kate, we still have not figured out what the heck that guy's singing. I think that every time, and I hold my tongue.
$1 million question.
$1 million question.
I have no clue.
If any of you listening know what this guy's on about, please let us know.
We've gotten some guesses, but they don't sound right.
No, we need to get to the bottom of this. So thanks, everybody, for joining us. This is a great, great conversation we're having with Barbara Allen on healing and conquering arthritis. Good stuff. And as the lady said, don't forget to follow us on Facebook if you want to keep up to date with all of our shows, our past shows, our archive shows, upcoming shows, all that stuff. Hit like and follow us on Facebook so that you can keep up to date with everything we have going on. And if you have any questions also about that Qigong course, it's an amazing course. You can listen to the episode we did with Tristan Truscott and Peter Ragnar in episode 127, I think it was. It's just a great course. So if you have any questions, please let me know. I'd love to help you out. And this is episode 233, and we're on live Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, 9 a.m. Pacific. So you can listen live and join the chat room, get your questions answered. And before the break, we're talking a little bit about why so much.
1 in 6.
1 in 6 people in the United States. And I think there's over 300 million. So that's just a lot of people.
That's a staggering.
Yeah.
So even more people than that have arthritis. It's 1 in 6 have doctor-diagnosed arthritis.
Oh,
Oh.
So, yeah.
Wow. So what is there? I would imagine the osteoarthritis is the more common one. Is that right?
It's the most prevalent. It's 15% of the population, which is a lot.
And is that just an age onset type of arthritis?
You know, that's what I thought back when I had my autoimmune type. I thought osteo was way different than what I had, and I had no idea when I wrote my book that it would work so well for osteoarthritis. But there's a component with osteo also where you have inflammation. So behind every type of chronic inflammation with arthritis is something called leaky gut syndrome. And so one of the reasons why arthritis is growing at such an alarming rate in our population is the number of stressors that we are exposed to has grown exponentially in the last decade or two. So some of it is economics, some of it is just lifestyle. People don't get enough sleep. They don't eat a good diet. Some of it is because of genetic engineering. We have engineered into the genetic structure of our food toxins that work by killing pests by messing up their digestive system, and we eat it, and it messes up our digestive system too.
So a lot of people could be listening. I mean, a lot of our listeners are really tuned on to this type of thing. They're really smart, but a lot of people could be listening and thinking, what the heck? How is a joint problem correlated to a gut problem? And I'm sure you know a lot about how the mechanics of how that works.
Yes, our immune system is constantly sampling everything that goes through our gut. And with a healthy immune system and a healthy gut, we develop oral tolerance to the things we're eating. The immune system sees it there first, and it goes, that's just a cucumber. Oh, that's just an apple. We'll stay calm. But when you get under a lot of stress, you develop something called leaky gut syndrome, and everybody, even healthy people, leak a little tiny bit of undigested food into their body. There's a little bit of tolerance here. Okay. But when you're under a lot of stress, you leak a lot of food into your bloodstream, and when your immune system sees it there first, it goes, oh, an invader, we have to attack.
Yeah.
And so then you get antibodies clumping onto this food, and because the joints are the backwaters of the body, these complexes, these food immune system complexes, settle in your joints, and they're marked for destruction. So, what happens in a war when you decide to destroy a neighborhood? Everything gets hurt, not just, the thing you're trying to destroy. So that's why you get chronic inflammation set up in your joints.
And so these particles somehow make their way to areas of the body that have low blood flow or low oxygen or something? And that's
right. The only circulation that's in a joint is passive circulation. So unless you're actively moving a joint and that's pushing lymph and liquid through your capillary system, there's no movement there. So that's why they settle out there. It's not like your heart or your muscles that have a really good blood supply all the time.
Wow, okay. So
obviously the first thing is to heal leaky gut, I'm sure. Is that the first step for most people?
Yeah, so the first step is to heal leaky gut, and usually the way you do that is you identify all these triggers that are causing your immune system to attack yourself. And the reason you have to stop all those foods is once you start attacking the foods in your joint, you also start attacking the lining of your gut, because the immune system thinks it's the enemy there too. It thinks it's a bunch of bacteria trying to kill you.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So healing leaky gut. How come some people have leaky gut, do you think, and they don't have arthritis?
There can be different manifestations of leaky gut. So you always have an overactive immune system. You're going to get fatigue, but maybe they just luckily have stayed more active, or some of the other risk factors. We haven't talked so much about emotions, but for me, dealing with fear and anger was really critical. And so anger is a very hot, inflammatory energy. And if you've got repressed anger in certain parts of your body, then it's going to be like a magnet to attract the problem on an energetic level.
Yeah, that's where I wanted to go next. So that's a good time to transition. So this whole idea of energetics and emotions, we talked a lot about that on this website. We talked to a guy just recently, Jonathan Tripodi. We've talked to Dr. Alex Lloyd and Dr. Bradley Nelson, and they all do the same type of work in terms of energetics. I guess they focus mainly on energetics of the body, but that really is a big problem, isn't it? These emotional traumas get stored in the body, don't they?
They do, and sometimes it comes from something fairly innocent, like my parents would always send me to my room if I was angry, and I wasn't allowed to speak or talk until I could, quote, behave myself. And I think they were trying to do something good for me there, but I internalized that as if I'm angry, I'm a bad person and I'm being punished.
Wow.
Yeah.
And then I would get angry at myself for being angry. And I also had this idea that unless I could not be angry at all, I couldn't even talk about what was wrong. But as soon as I started talking about what was wrong, I'd get angry.
It's like this vicious cycle, isn't it?
Right. And so one of the things that I noticed very early on when I had this extreme pain is that if I could be honest about my emotions, the pain was less. And if I stuffed them or I wasn't aware of them, it was worse. So it became this biofeedback mechanism.
Wow. So did it become worse or better almost immediately, or how long was the time?
Within a second or two.
Oh my
gosh. Wow. So you had a really good sensitive system. So you probably knew when you released that anger or something like that, you probably knew immediately that there's a correlation there.
Yeah, and I was pretty lucky. There's been a lot of serendipitous events in my life, but I had heard a radio interview similar to your show, and a woman was, I don't even remember what she had, but it was something you would not expect someone to heal from, and she credited meditation as what allowed her to heal. I was like, well, I'm willing to try anything.
Yeah, at that point in your life, I mean, sure, you're going to go for food and everything else, but you're really willing to try anything, aren't you? Most people.
Right. And I became a very avid meditator within the Vipassana tradition, and that gave me a very safe way to contact fear and anger where nobody had to know about it, and I didn't have to express it externally, which made me feel safer. Mm-hmm. But yet, it was the accumulation of many releases that then, at some point, I just knew. I can't even tell you why, but at the end of one particularly intense summer where I was sitting down with almost homicidal levels of rage internally, it's not like I was acting out.
Yeah.
At the end of that meditation one day, I just knew I didn't have any food sensitivities left at all, and there's actually no arthritis pattern left in my body to trigger. It doesn't really matter what I eat now. I mean, it matters because I feel better if I eat healthy.
Right.
But I don't have an autoimmune reaction anymore.
Isn't that wild?
I'm sorry, Barbara, what was the name of that specific meditation you did?
It's called Vipassana. It's from Southeast Asia. It's from the Hinayana school of Buddhism, which is closest to what the Buddha taught. Sometimes in the U.S. it's called mindfulness meditation.
Okay.
There are lots of great teachers around, and medical programs are now teaching it as a way to deal with a lot of chronic diseases, which is very exciting to me.
Wow,
yeah, I've heard of that. I just wasn't aware of how that was used in the way that you're talking about. That's fascinating.
Yeah, that's interesting. So with the meditation and things like that, I guess a lot of people might have to really take stock in their life and think, you know, am I really angry? Am I really upset? Or am I really stressed about bills and things and money? And I guess it really takes a lot of searching, yeah, to find out if you are angry and really don't know it.
Right, and I was a very calm person. I mean, maybe everybody knew I was angry but me. That's what my mom would say. But I had no idea I was angry. And what I found with a lot of people, especially with arthritis, because we tend to turn anger inward. Anger going inward is inflammation. You know, we don't tend to be the hotheads.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It's actually probably healthier to be a hothead as long as you're not acting in destructive external ways.
Yeah, I brought up this idea to Jonathan Tripodi recently, who we just had on, I think, last week, and I just thought it would be a good idea for people to do something like a meditation where you're sort of releasing these emotions, and then also to get like a punching bag. I know you do karate, but a lot of people can get this anger out of dispel their anger, similar to like a dog, you know, just shakes it off after they get done barking at another dog. It would be good on both ends of the spectrum to have that just in our life, right? To get rid of this emotional trauma.
Well, you have to be careful with something like a punching bag or hitting a pillow, because there's a very wonderful Buddhist teacher called Thich Nhat Hanh. And he says, if you're not careful, what you do is just get really good at hitting a pillow.
Oh, I see, yeah.
So you can reinforce the pattern of anger if you're not careful. So what you need to do is just find the joy in the movement and not really have it be about anger, but have it be about releasing the energy. And you know you're doing it right if you feel really joyful and light and not angry at the end.
Ah, okay. That's good to know.
Well, I have a question.
If you feel more angry or like you still want to hurt somebody, then you're probably reinforcing a bad habit.
Yeah, that makes sense. Well, like Justin was mentioning earlier about how sometimes people don't, like I was one of those people who went in, I think, to an acupuncturist of all people that told me that I was one of the nicest, angriest people she ever met. And I said, I'm not angry. And I kind of had that defense mechanism go up. And what are you talking about? But then I don't know how important it is. I don't know what you would say to people. Is it more important to, if someone tells you something like that, after that it kind of set me in motion on a journey to go, do I need to search out to find out why I might indeed be angry? Or is it better to kind of hands-off approach, go into more of a meditative state and let it come to you? I mean, are people doing more damage by going out and searching for things?
I don't think it's necessary to go out and find things to make you angry. At least for me, what was most effective was just to sit with whatever was coming up. And if I was happy and joyful that day, fine. But as you kind of sink deeper into yourself, you'll find different layers of things. And what's most important is just not to be judgmental, because emotions have nothing to do with rational thought.
Right.
And so what would often happen is if something external was making me angry, when I would sit in meditation, it would start with that, but then it would go to childhood, and then it would go to stuff that was very difficult to either even trace or understand. For me, it was sometimes things that seemed to be apparent past life stuff, and I can't tell you whether those really exist or not, but you know, it was at least an easy way for me to think about it. Oh, I'm in this lifetime again.
Yeah, when you had those things come up, was that part of your journey? Did you kind of go into those past life regression type work, or did you not really give it much merit?
I didn't go into it specifically to heal or with someone else. My teacher just said, whatever's coming up, you know, do the prime directive, which is to be aware of what it is and then have equanimity, meaning don't push or pull on it. Don't try to make it last longer or shorter. Don't try to make it more intense or less intense, but let it be like the wind going through the trees that has its own life, or like an amoeba that's just expanding and contracting. And if you're pushing or pulling on it, it actually keeps recharging it and keeps it going. But when you let it just run its batteries down, then at some point it's had the perfect expression that it needed to have, and then usually you have peace for a little while and then the next layer comes up.
Oh, man, isn't that true? We're all onions, aren't we?
Yes.
Well, we're going to take a little break here. We're with Barbara Allen from ConqueringArthritis.com, and don't forget to check out her book as well. We'll talk about her book as well in the next segment, and I also want to ask her about some supplements, how to rebuild your gut, and parasites and things like that. So we got a lot to get to.
And get to our listener question.
Yeah, and we have a listener.
Very good.
Yeah, let's get to the listener question first after the break. We'll do that. We're with Barbara Allen, and her website is ConqueringArthritis.com, and we'll be right back right after this break. Kate and I have had our sauna for about a year now, I'd say, when we first got it from Phil Wilson, and it's an incredible machine. We use ours about every single day. Kate sits in about 20 minutes, and I sit in there about for a half hour. Usually watch a documentary, and it's extremely relaxing. It's really, really incredible machine. And if you go to extremehealthradio.com/sauna, you can learn all about it. We did an entire hour interview with Phil Wilson. You can check that out. You can look at the pictures of us with it. You can watch videos on that page. It helps you to sleep really, really well. You can lose a lot of weight with it. You can burn, I think, around 600 calories in about 20 minutes or so. It improves your skin, increases circulation all over the body, and circulation is critical for your health. You can prevent and reverse diseases with it if you have a cold or flu. It's incredible. It heats you down to the core. It heats 4 to 6 inches inside your body, so it's really incredible. And a lot of people use it for cancer as well. So if you have any kind of incurable, quote, disease, you can use it for that. And Dr. Shade is the foremost authority on detoxification. And listen to what he says about it.
How do I detoxify from plastics? I mean, you guys are using a sauna, and what does a sauna do for us? A sauna is great. It's moving a number of different toxins. Remember, we talked about the mice that if you put PCBs in there, then that made the mercury all that much worse. And sweating moves out a lot of plastics, volatiles, fat-based toxins. It's really good at moving those out, sweating those out. So that's how you're getting those out, and those are contributing to this synergistic soup inside the body. And so that's why they're good, is they're taking out a bunch of the different things in the soup.
And Daniel Vitalis, one of our favorite guests. What do you have to say about the sauna?
When you go into the sauna, like a far infrared sauna like you discussed, your body goes into a deep relaxation mode, and your sympathetic nervous system shuts down and your parasympathetic nervous system turns on. And when that's active, that's the nervous system, part of your nervous system that's active when you meditate. That becomes active, and your detoxification pathways open up wide. Why is this important? It's important because when you go running and you sweat, you're not necessarily eliminating very much toxicity from your body. But when you sweat in the sauna, you eliminate a lot of toxicity from your body. So sweating in a relaxed state is how we eliminate. The other thing is that what's wonderful about the sauna is that it puts you in a parasympathetic nervous system response, like as if you were meditating. So it's almost a hack. It's like a trick to get yourself into a meditative, relaxed state, to decompress stress, to reverse the effects of stress, and to get your body eliminating deep, deep toxicity that's stored in your body fat, because it can come out in the oils of your skin. So I think, sauna is one of the most crucial detoxification, really health practices that we could take on, especially in this era of heavy toxicity, particularly fat-soluble toxins.
The sauna is really, really great. They offer payment plans, because if you buy it through PayPal, it's 100% secure. You don't even need a PayPal account. I think you could do a payment plan through PayPal. It's got low EMF electromagnetic fields coming off of it. It's portable, so that means you don't have to knock down a wall in your house. You can just move it from room to room. It sets up in about 2 to 5 minutes. It's super easy to clean. All you got to do is wipe it down when you're done, and wipe the neck down, and it produces energy and heat inside very, very evenly throughout the whole machine. All you have to do is sit in there for about 15 minutes a day. And the great thing I like about it too is it requires zero preheating. So you turn it on and you're starting to get warm, and you're starting to detoxify with that far infrared light almost immediately. So it's really great. It comes with a 1-year warranty. It's about $990 plus $25 shipping. And that's really, really a good deal, because if you look at most of the regular saunas out there, they are in the $2,000 to $4,000 range. So This is really, really a good deal. So check it out, extremehealthradio.com/sauna.
All free shows, all the time on Extreme Health Radio. Opening minds and transforming lives worldwide. Join our community today. Sign up to our email list and instantly get our free gift to you, along with loads of inspirational content and cutting-edge tips to help change your life at extremehealthradio.com/subscribe.
All right, we're having a great time here with Barbara Allen, ConqueringArthritis.com, and you can check out her book as well, Conquering Arthritis. This is episode 233, so you'll find all the show notes on episode 233. We broadcast Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday at 9 a.m. Pacific. Live, you can listen to the live show, join the chat room, and get your questions answered that way. And as the lady said, if you want to keep up to date with everything we have going on, that's a little more fun than Facebook, I think. You can sign up to our newsletter. You can just sign up on right there on our website, and we'll send you a free ebook, incredible ebook that sells for $20 on Amazon, but we'll send it to you for free. And also, if you guys are interested in that sauna, please let me know. I know it's a significant purchase, but quite a bit cheaper than all the other saunas out there. You don't have to knock down a wall or do anything like crazy in your house like that. So it's a great, great investment. So if you have any questions and you're thinking about ordering that, please just let me know. I'd love to help you out. And we have so much to get to before this show is over. And Barbara, would you be willing to stay a couple extra minutes if it works out with your schedule? I know.
I would love to. So I can stay on as long as you would like.
Oh, I love that because there's so much to get to.
I feel like we're running out of time.
I know.
Certain guests are like that. It's crazy.
Yeah, this is so good. Okay, so
thank you.
Let's do this. Let's play the listener question.
Okay.
And this is from a regular listener, and I happen to know, I've been in contact with her, so I know a lot about her story as well. But we will play that right now.
Hi, this is Christy Crandall. I was diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis about 2.5 years ago, and I've tried just about everything. I've restricted my diet. I've cut out all foods that I'm sensitive to. Tried multiple different natural therapies, and now I've recently come to the conclusion that the root cause of the problem is a parasitic infection. So I've been taking antibiotics for that for a couple of years now, seeing no real results with that, and then recently been using a Rife machine to try to knock the parasites out, and not having any luck specifically in my ankles and my wrists. And not sure kind of where to go from here. The next step was to do a parasite cleanse. Once I know exactly what parasite I have, we did submit a stool test to try to identify that. But just wondering from your experience, what you might suggest for someone like me who's tried just about everything and really having no luck with any of the therapies that I've tried so far.
So, Barbara, that was Christy, and it sounds like she's done a lot of work on herself. And I know from communicating with her that she has also done hyperbaric oxygen. She's done the alcat test.
Juice fasting.
Juice fasting. She's cut out nightshades. She also sent me a big, long email. So she's done a lot. It sounds like she's done a lot of things.
Okay. Well, first I'd like to say that it's really wonderful that she went and had the actual parasite diagnosed, because just because you go on antibiotics doesn't mean that it will necessarily cut out that or kill that particular parasite. And then there's a certain order you need to do things in when you're conquering your arthritis. So most people who if you don't have parasites and you don't have Lyme's disease, usually you can start right in with the alcat test and get wonderful results. But if you've got something like Lyme's, you've got to get that treated. If you've got something like parasites, your gut's not going to heal until you treat those. So it's really important to find out exactly what you have and make sure that you totally get rid of that, not just the adults, all the eggs. You don't want it coming back. Unfortunately, a lot of people will do only natural cures for parasites, and a lot of times they'll get in a cycle where it'll go on for years. They'll control it, but they won't totally eliminate it. It's one of the very few times I would actually say use the harsh Western drugs and just be done with it.
So what are some of those drugs?
I am not a parasite expert, and there's so many different types of parasites that it just varies from, go to somebody that's an expert in that.
I see, okay.
Yeah, okay.
So there are some really good parasite medications that people could take.
Right.
And so you want to find out what types of parasites you have as well, like Christy's done, right?
Right. If you just know that you have them, but you don't know what type and what they respond to, you can do a lot of harshness to your body by taking the wrong remedy.
Interesting. Okay. And so let's see. She's done the juice fasting. So it sounds like she might have something more going on, perhaps Lyme's or something, right?
I would just get that ruled out, make sure that's not an issue. But the alcat test usually won't work until after you've cleared the parasites. And the fasting usually won't give you any kind of lasting results until you've cleared the parasites first.
Wow.
The other thing is, if it's been a while since she took the alcat test and she modified her diet, but she's still got leaky gut, she may have developed a whole new set of foods, because behind chronic inflammation, that type of immune system reaction is fluid. So if you cut out your problem foods, usually you get back about 90% of those within 6 months to 2 years, just because your immune system heals and your gut heals. But if you change your diet, you'll feel great for a little while, but if you haven't actually healed the leaky gut because you've still got an underlying cause, then you may develop a whole new set of things that used to be healthy but are now causing the inflammation, which is maybe why she's not feeling better yet.
And where do you think so many people are picking up these parasites?
Yeah, good question.
We have food shipped in from other countries that isn't very well, inspected. Yeah. We have people traveling from all over the world and bringing things in that we used to not ever be exposed to.
Uh-huh. Yeah, I guess it's just a global, the world is so much smaller these days, especially if you do a lot of traveling. Even if you just do a lot of traveling within the United States, you're still at airports, international airports probably too.
Yes.
When you're eating unwashed, sometimes fruits and vegetables as kids, that stuff can probably lay dormant in your system for a while too, until you have an immune maybe suppression or something goes off kilter, and then maybe they just go out of control. Could that be a possibility?
Yeah, that's true. Also, things like eating raw fish or raw eggs. You may think that the source is good, but you missed a parasite.
So interesting. What are some of the biggest sensitivities? What are the main foods that people are that have rheumatoid arthritis or any kind of arthritis are sensitive to?
So I'm going to tell you that, but I'm going to also tell you that before I tell you that when I do this, people misunderstand and they get the idea, I'm just going to cut out the 10 most common things or the 20 most common things, and then when they don't get well, they get mad and say, well, food doesn't have anything to do with arthritis.
Right.
And pretty much any food, no matter how healthy it is probably triggered inflammation in somebody. And what's most important is getting an exact read on your triggers as they are today, not what they were 6 months ago or 5 years ago or what cured your neighbor's arthritis down the street.
Right.
So that being said, about half the people I work with have problems with gluten. I had really severe problems with corn, and some of this Roundup Ready stuff and BT toxin, that's part of why corn used to be much more healthy than it is now. Mm-hmm. So that's part of the problem, is the genetic engineering. But I actually noticed that only about a third of my clients have problems with corn. Soy is another big one, just because it is hidden in so many different products. And some of this can be triggered not just through exposure through your mouth, but also through your skin. So a lot of skin lotion is made from glycerin that's made from soy. So if you have a severe soy sensitivity, it could be triggered every time you put skin lotion on.
Oh my
goodness. Wow. Okay.
Yeah. Right. Let's see. A lot of people have problems with dairy. Not everyone, but those are the biggest ones. And then it's just almost random what the others are.
I guess it just depends on each one of our own genetic uniqueness. How did you find your sensitivity to corn?
Well, I was doing the fasting and then the selective reintroduction.
Uh-huh.
So I tested corn, probably popcorn or, corn flour or something, and I knew that, but it actually took me years to figure out all the hidden sources of corn. So the dextrose and table salt is made commercially from corn, and that was enough to put me in excruciating pain within a few hours of having even the smallest trace of table salt.
Oh, my goodness.
For years. Mine was so severe that if I hadn't have done the meditative work, I probably still would have that severe sensitivity. That was the one I knew had left my body when I hit the tipping point with the anger release work.
Oh.
And I don't claim that I'm not angry. It's just I did enough where that pattern released in my immune system.
So some of these...
There were 4 different ingredients in my toothpaste that were corn-derived, and that was the last one I figured out. When I stopped brushing my teeth with toothpaste and switched to baking soda, I slept an hour less a night, and that's when, because it was the very last thing I cut out, it was miraculous. I felt like, even though I didn't have the arthritis anymore and I felt better and I could move, it still felt like there was still something a little wrong in my body. And after I cut that out, it was like just a sense of wellness I hadn't had in years.
Oh, my goodness. So there's little tiny bits of, I guess, chemically derived corn in toothpaste?
Yeah, what the immune system sees are just little tiny peptide fragments after we've digested our food or partially digested it, and that's enough to trigger it. And it doesn't need much. Just almost a homeopathic amount can trigger the immune system when it's revved up already.
Isn't that wild? So that's just the most amazing thing. I mean, you really have to want to get well to find out if you have some chemical sensitivities to a couple ingredients in your toothpaste. That's pretty incredible.
Yeah, well, I was a woman on a mission.
Yeah, no kidding.
Wow. So what's the prognosis for people that have any type of, I guess, reactive or rheumatoid? Because osteoarthritis is something that's not as it doesn't seem like it's as bad. But if you have those other two and you're relatively young like you were, if you just simply go down the medical route and only take the drugs and things like that, what's the typical outcome for people?
Well, a small percentage of people, the drugs work really well, and if that's true, great. But they did not work for me, and most of my clients they don't work for. Turned out that all my drugs had cornstarch in them. Every time I popped one of my prescription medicines, it made me worse, and I didn't know that for years.
Wow.
But, so I couldn't take what was being offered. Some people can. Because there are genetic factors in how you metabolize drugs and how you detox things, you actually have to be pretty robust for the drug solution to work.
Yeah.
If it works for you, often they'll work for a few years and then stop. If it stops working, then it's like a very bad prognosis. You'll usually, within a few years, have severe joint damage, and it becomes hard to walk and use your hands and think and things like that. If it works well for you, you can have a relatively normal life for as long as that happens. But they're only suppressing the symptom. They're not actually healing your gut or releasing your anger patterns. So I don't consider any drug a cure. I consider them a useful tool that buys you time while you actually figure out your own cure.
And so if someone were on these drugs, I mean, this is getting into the medical world right now, and I just want everyone to know.
And I'm not a doctor.
I was just going to say that, I want everyone to know that we're not medical doctors, and we're not telling anybody to not take their medications. But if that is something that someone wants to do, is to wean off, they would work with their doctor and try to do some alternative, something on the side, right? And then kind of wean off their drugs that way?
Yeah, well, first I would say don't go with the over-the-counter drugs. People think that they're milder and better, but all the non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs like aspirin and ibuprofen and Advil and naproxen, all of those actually make leaky gut syndrome worse. Acetaminophen, Tylenol, is a painkiller. It actually ties up the pathways in your body that are needed to keep healthy cartilage. So if you're taking that at the max dose every day, it's hard to maintain healthy cartilage. So you're actually making yourself worse, even though you think you're taking something mild.
And acetaminophen and Tylenol and all that kind of stuff, that's in everything, isn't it?
Yes, it is. A lot. And if you're just taking it occasionally, it's not a big deal. But if you're taking it every day near the max dose, then it's a really bad idea.
We were just at our dentist, Dr. Stuart Nunley, and he's a biological dentist out there in Marble Falls, Texas. And he was talking about, I was sitting in his chair, and we were chit-chatting about
the direct correlation.
Yeah, the direct correlation between, he's seen a lot of patients with even cavitations, wisdom teeth extractions in people, and mercury.
And especially mercury, heavy metals.
Yeah, mercury sensitivities and things. He's seen a lot of correlations between our teeth and these autoimmune diseases, especially arthritis. Have you found that as well?
Yeah, he's exactly right. There's a whole subset of people with rheumatoid arthritis, psoriatic arthritis, other types of arthritis that we don't necessarily, and I'm one of them, I don't clear heavy metals very well. We don't necessarily have a higher exposure than anyone else, but we can't get rid of them once we have them.
I see.
And that messes up our immune system. And it's interesting that you mentioned that, because I almost died a year and a half ago. I had been at a ceremony, it's called a Sundance, and it's not like I haven't done this many other years. It was my 9th Sundance, but at the end of it, you fast and you, for 4 days, and you dance all day.
Oh my gosh, how
and
cool.
Yeah, it's very cool, and it's a spiritual renewal, but I wasn't able to pull out of my fatigue at the end of the dance. And I went to my doctor, and it turned out that I had toxic levels of cadmium and lead. And also, part of why I was redoing the testing is I had pulverized some bone in my heel in a cycling accident, and it wasn't healing right, and we couldn't figure out why. And I'd had a lot of dental work done right before the Sundance, and after that dental work, my foot rebroke. And I was just walking around normally, and it rebroke. So I knew something was off. And so we did what I consider Hail Mary testing. We didn't know what was wrong, so we just started. And it turned out that I had these heavy metal levels that were keeping my bone from healing right. But when my doctor saw that, she said, now we know why it was so hard for you to heal from your arthritis and why it was so hard to heal from your meningitis. But what we didn't know was how bad my detox systems were at that point. So when she did a very mild chelation, I almost died because it pulled out these metals into my bloodstream, and I couldn't metabolize oxygen anymore. It was like being snuffed out.
How did you react? Like, what happened to you when you were chelating or whatever you were doing?
I felt like it didn't matter how much. I felt like my lungs were working just fine, but if I tried to move or walk around, it was like I didn't have enough oxygen to do it.
Ooh.
And I got to my bed, and I was trying to call somebody, but I didn't even have enough energy to reach for the phone. And I just had the curiosity right before I passed out. Well, when I come to again, will I be in a body or out of a body?
Oh, my gosh.
Oh, my goodness.
And when I came to about 12 hours later, the crisis had passed enough for me to, move and communicate slowly.
Oh, my gosh. That's intense.
Yeah.
Right. And so we use nutraceuticals to help clear. I'm actually going to reveal something I haven't revealed publicly before, but the nutraceuticals were helping me clear, in particular something called glutathione, which my body doesn't make very well. But then after about 2 months of that, my veins weren't accepting IVs anymore. My body just said enough. So I started praying, and I just said, look, powers that be, I know you know how to materialize and dematerialize things, and my kidneys hurt really badly. Cadmium poisoning in Japan is known as the ouch-ouch disease because it hurts when your bones break, and it hurts when your kidneys. So I was definitely an ouch-ouch.
Yeah.
And my skin was burning because it was trying to detox through my skin. And by the way, I know you were mentioning saunas earlier. Saunas helped save my life because it was helping me get some of this out through my skin and not just through my kidneys and my bowels.
That was a question I was going to ask you. I'm glad you touched on that. That's awesome.
Yeah, so I just started praying, and next time within about a month, I felt like I was well again, and my doctor retested, and she couldn't believe it because my lead levels were 1/5 of what they'd been, and the cadmium was 0, and she didn't think that was possible. And she said, "What did you do?"
Did you tell her? I prayed.
So, I mean, ultimately, all healing is spiritual healing, but it really helps if you're also doing the mental, emotional, physical work to support it. You know, I kind of feel like God helps those who help themselves.
Right,
yeah,
right.
yeah.
So heavy metals are really a big deal then. Mercury, heavy metals, like you said, cadmium. If people have these in their bodies, it's just going to cause all kinds of problems, isn't it?
Right. It will cause all sorts of immune system problems. And if that's one of your problems, just like if you have parasites, you really have to have that addressed separately. It's not everybody's problem. Probably 95% of people I work with, luckily that's not their problem, but that 5% you will not get well until you address that. And go to somebody that's gentle and really good because, you know, if they try to detox you too quick, you know, you could have an experience like me that only not live.
Yeah, you're gone for 12 hours, don't know where you are.
Yeah.
Wow. So now with these, you mentioned before when you had the chelation done and all these heavy metals, the organs of elimination, and those are, what are they? The lungs, the liver, the skin, the colon, the kidneys. All of these need to be working properly as well for people. So people with arthritis should look at those organs and try to see how they can either cleanse them, right, or get them working correctly. Right.
So it's important. Your liver is the main thing that helps your body detox. So if your liver's not working right, then go to somebody that understands how to make your liver work right. Doctors of Chinese medicine are often good at that kind of thing, or naturopathic doctors are sometimes very good. Your kidneys need to be working right, your lungs. Circulation. Part of why exercise is so important for people with arthritis is it helps you expel more of what needs to be expelled through your lungs, and just by getting your blood circulation going, it helps your bowels and your kidneys and everything, just keep everything in good shape in terms of flushing out what needs to be flushed out.
Because on top of the inflammation issue and on top of all this autoimmune stuff is this idea of cleansing. And like you were saying before, your body just couldn't get rid of these heavy metals. And so with people as well, a lot of times I'm imagining that people just can't get rid of toxicity and this burden.
Right. And that's part of why fasting can be so beneficial for people with arthritis too. I actually recommend that they take the alcat test and get on their ideal diet first, so that then when they fast, since that's so profoundly anti-inflammatory and will reset their body, not only will they go into massive house cleaning that you can't do when you're eating. 30% of all our energy each day goes just to digesting food. So when you stop eating food, that 30% is freed up for detox.
That makes sense. So that's why it's incredibly anti-inflammatory.
It's incredibly anti-inflammatory for a different reason, but one of the long-term benefits is sometimes it will remove toxins that were messing with your immune system.
Wow.
So that once they're gone, then it doesn't get re-triggered later.
So what are some good supplements, do you think? We had a listener question asked this in preparation for the show. To rebuild the gut, do you think?
Well, it all depends on what your particular problem foods are. So anything that's healthy could also be a problem if you're having an inflammatory reaction to it. So I just want to put that caveat. I can't just give you a list without already knowing what your triggers are.
Right. That makes sense.
So glucosamine and chondroitin are both very healing for cartilage and for the gut. And I know that there are a lot of reports out there right now in the last year saying that's not true, but if you look at those reports, none of them were done with verifying the actual amounts that were in the supplements. They were just trusting the manufacturer, and that's a notoriously bad thing to do.
Yeah.
You always want second-party verification, particularly because there's been so many problems with in that particular supplement of it not delivering what it says on the bottle.
Yeah, and plus you also, with supplements, have to really get to the bottom. I mean, there could be binders, excipients, and things that might harm you too, right?
Exactly. Yeah. So if you've got a wheat sensitivity, say vitamin E is usually derived from wheat germ oil, so that could hurt you. If you've got a corn sensitivity, things like vitamin C, you've got to be really careful of what the source is.
Oh, I see.
If you've got a soy sensitivity, you need to make sure there's not soy oil or glycerin as a carrier oil.
Okay.
So, but it all depends on your pattern. So a really good nutritious diet that has a lot of vitamin C and other, good things will help heal. Vitamin C is very healing to the joints and to the immune system. As you mentioned, if you can tolerate cabbage, that's an excellent healer for the digestive system, and you don't have to worry about all the other stuff that's been added. There's something called mucigens that are in cabbage that help line the stomach and help it heal. It's very calming. Let's see. Things like ginger and turmeric. So if you have a reaction against them, don't have them, but ginger is very healing to about 50 different systems in the body.
Wow.
Turmeric also is very healthy and anti-inflammatory. So if you enjoy that, that's good. It's really important diet-wise that you eat an alkalizing diet, especially if you've been in pain for a long time, because that will help your immune system heal too. If you, in the morning before you've had anything to eat, if you swallow 2 or 3 times the saliva in your mouth and then spit some into a spoon and then put a pH test strip in, if you're pH 7 or higher, you're fine, but if you're lower, you need more vegetables in your diet.
Okay. More greens, maybe?
Yeah. So things like kale and spinach, and if you like wheatgrass juice, that's great, or barley grass juice, that's fantastic. But a healing diet is usually about 70% vegetables and only 30% protein and carbs.
Okay. And would you recommend any meat for people, or is that a very acidic substance?
That is a very individual choice, but often even vegans, when they're in the healing phase, and I hate to say this because it makes people so upset, but they will sometimes temporarily need to add in just a little bit of animal protein to heal. They need that high-quality protein, and although meat has an acidic reaction in the body, you only need about 2 ounces at a meal to get the protein that you need. So I would recommend using meat as a condiment.
Okay, I see, yeah.
Christine Northrup talks about meat as a condiment, and I just love that idea.
Okay.
You're not making a meal out of it, but you're just having a little bit on your salad or a little bit with your vegetables.
Oh, that's a great way to put that. I've never heard that.
A little bit on the side. I like that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And it also depends on what you're reacting to. So, like, if you do react to beef or pork or chicken or whatever, that's not the meat for you.
Right.
Sometimes people that have had a real heavy meat diet and have been reacting to their meats will need to get vegetable protein for a while. Sometimes you have to do different than normal just to heal, and once you've healed, you can go back to your preferences.
And assuming someone's not allergic to these things or anything in them, we've heard of like mastic gum or L-glutamine for the gut. Do you think those would be good?
Yeah, assuming none of the excipients are a problem, the L-glutamine can be very good. I don't specifically know about the mastic gum.
Okay, yeah, we've heard that in the past. And, a lot of people take marshmallow root and things and slippery elm and all that. I guess it would all depend on whether or not you're sensitive to these things.
Right. If your body's going to tell you, and the other thing is while you're healing, it's not good to take the same things every day, so it's good to rotate your foods and supplements.
Okay.
So until your leaky gut has healed, you can have as much as you want of a food or a supplement for 24 hours, but to keep it safe, it's good to then avoid it for the next 3 24-hour periods.
Oh.
And I say that because sometimes people will start at dinner time with, whatever their new set of foods are and have their leftovers for breakfast and lunch. It doesn't have, there's nothing magic about midnight. It could be, 4 p.m. when your new food day starts.
So you're talking about taking 3 days off a particular supplement or something?
Right, and that helps keep them be safe, because in order to develop a inflammatory response against a food, you need two things. One, your immune system has to be capable of attacking it, and there may be a few lifelong things that your immune system will attack no matter what. But then it needs frequency. So as long as you're taking breaks, it's like putting a cranky child into a timeout or putting them down for a nap. When they come out of that timeout or when they wake up from their nap, it's a lot easier to behave again.
That's true. That's true.
Hey, Barbara, as far as the alcat goes, I know when I've looked into it, you think 200 foods and chemicals and things, that's a lot, but we're probably exposed to way more of those than that number. I mean, is that an overall? Obviously, you think it's a very good test and it's comprehensive enough to find out what the real triggers are, right?
It's the best test I know of. A lot of times when people want to get tested for food sensitivities, they'll go for cheaper tests that are based just on antibody reactions, so IgG or IgA or IgE, and cheaper, but they don't give you enough information because not all inflammatory responses work through antibodies. The alcat test is the only test I know of that uses whole blood, and then what it measures is each type of blood cell, whether they're more or less, and whether they get bigger or smaller. So for any kind of inflammatory response, you're either going to have a whole bunch more of a type of cell, or they're going to get smaller because they release something. So it's going to catch every single kind. So there are like over a dozen different types of things that can happen in an inflammatory response, and it will catch all of those.
I gotcha.
Do you think it's good to have an alcat test more than once, like maybe once a year? Do you think like our food sensitivities could change over time?
Definitely. I have clients that get tested once a year or so just so that they know. And if you've got the funds or your insurance company will pay for that, great. Otherwise, what I suggest is as long as you're feeling good, you don't worry about it. But as soon as you start feeling off, then you get the test again.
I see.
This would be good for people, obviously, without major health problems, just to know, imagine how much better they could possibly feel, just knowing what it is they should stay away from, maybe, perhaps.
There are a lot of professional athletes that get this test just because they can get a 10% increase in their performance, and there are very few things that, a professional athlete can do to get that kind of edge on their competition.
Right.
So like Kurt Warner, right before he won the Super Bowl, had taken the alcat test.
Oh, my gosh.
Really? Wow.
Yep.
Wow, that's amazing.
Wow.
Yeah, Jack Nicklaus used it, and that he actually had a problem with his hip, but that was part of his secret weapon on the golf course.
Oh, my gosh.
Wow, that would be a really good thing, I think. And what do you think about paying for the more expensive? I think there's different levels of that test, isn't there?
Yeah, I recommend the very most comprehensive for my clients just because the more you know, the easier it is to heal.
Mm-hmm.
And so not only do you need to know what's hurting you, but you need to have a large group of safe foods that you can rotate so that you can have variety and joy in your life too.
Yeah, you don't want to have one or two safe foods, right? Because then that's all you're eating all day.
Yeah, and I work with people that tend to already be in, a lot of pain, but often they'll have between 50 and 120 different problem foods that show up. So it really helps when we do the larger test to catch everything. And I also like that it tests for molds and food additives and environmental chemicals, things that you'd never want to test on yourself.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you kind of buy into the whole theory of if you also eat a food every single day, it's kind of like the supplementation where you develop these allergies?
Not necessarily. There's some foods that have always been my friends that I've never had a reaction to. I could probably eat oats every day of my life, no matter how stressed I am, and my immune system just isn't geared to attack it. Maybe that's part of my Scottish ancestry.
Totally. We all probably have some of those that we're a little bit more lean toward.
And when I work with people over the course of years, we discover which foods they can have every day with impunity. We don't know ahead of time, but if you pay attention, you'll discover that about yourself.
Wow. So what about some of the patients you've worked with? If someone has been on medication for many, many years, and they've had really bad arthritis, and maybe they even have some joint, their joints are deformed quite a bit. Have you worked with patients like that, or can patients like that come back, do you think?
They can, and I have worked with people like that. So it's relatively easy to stop the inflammation. So a lot of the pain comes not from joint damage, but from just the ongoing inflammation.
Okay.
So that's pretty easy to deal with. And the brain fog and the memory problems go away when we can calm down the inflammation. That's just, a lot of people feel kind of perpetually like they have the flu, like that kind of fatigue and not being able to remember stuff. That's just a function of the immune system being revved up.
Mm. Wow. So when someone has if their joints are really, really deformed, people can come back from that?
No. Well, yes and no. Usually, if a joint is extremely deformed, what the next best step is joint replacement.
Okay.
But what you want to do is stop the ongoing disease process, so you don't need any more joint replacements.
Right.
If you have mild joint damage, often you can get some of that function back. So you have to be able to be moving that joint many times a day through full range of motion to help the joint reform correctly.
Okay.
You still have to have some cartilage left. If your cartilage is gone, if you're bone on bone, that's almost impossible to recover from other than by a surgery.
Right. Wow, that's amazing, because it gives people a lot of hope. So if people are on the medications, like you were saying earlier, people can basically buy themselves some time and start doing some research on the side and maybe working with someone like you.
Yeah. No, sometimes people I talk with think the medications are evil. They are not. They are a gift if they work for you. They really do buy you time. We don't want any joint damage going on. And if you are in a lot of pain or inflammation or your joints are rapidly deteriorating, go to a rheumatologist and get the big guns. And things like Humira, the biologics, things like methyltrexate, sulfasalazine, they're all very compatible with healing your gut, unlike the over-the-counter drugs, which are not.
Have you seen people that had any success doing the low dose, like the naltrexone or Benicar antibiotics, things like that?
I have, but I've also had at least as many people write in and talk about how horrible it was that they went on it, it didn't work that well, and then when they came off, they were hugely worse than before, and it's because the people that try to get off that after a few years and do horribly, it's because their gut bacteria are all messed up. So part of healing your gut is also taking probiotics. Right. You should have mentioned that earlier. But the people that have been successful in using that take large doses of probiotics every day. They do that regimen, and then they are able to slowly wean themselves off. But most people have, because of the way that protocol is usually administered, they have to stay on their whole life or they suddenly rebound in a really nasty way. And I don't consider that a cure. I consider that a suppression.
Have you been able to make any heads or tails out of the whole connection with, I think, Humira? There's a tie, isn't there, to some kind of cancers that can be related to that? I know we're talking about...
There's some controversy about whether it's related to cancers or not, and I don't think we're going to know for a few years. The drug manufacturers certainly aren't going to pay for the study. The people that are paying for the study are the ones that are on Humira now, and 10 years afterwards, we're actually going to have accurate population studies.
Right.
So I can't talk about whether that's an issue or not, but it does suppress the immune system, and part of why some people don't tolerate the biologics is they get every cold that comes by. It's very hard to, say, be a kindergarten teacher and be on Humira.
That would be a bad combination, wouldn't it?
Right. Some people are okay with that, but if it suppresses your immune system too much, then, of course, then you're not going to fight off those little cancers that everybody else's immune system just nips in the bud.
Right. That makes sense. Wow. Well, thanks, Barbara, for spending so much time with us. So you see patients, right? Or you consult with people.
Yeah, I'm not a doctor, so I don't see patients. I'm a coach, and so I work with clients, and I can coach people through the healing process.
Isn't that great? And so people can contact you. Do people do that through Skype or just through the phone, or what's the best way for people to do that?
They can go on my website, and they can either email me or they can call my office. Okay. My office number, is it all right to give that on the air?
Absolutely.
Sure, please do.
602-237-5294.
Okay.
Or they can go on conqueringarthritis.com.
Conquering Arthritis. And so you work with people and coach them, and gosh, it sounds like a very rewarding thing that you do.
It is the best job in the whole world. Probably 95% of the people I work with get significantly better. Most rheumatologists, they're lucky if 10 or 15% of their clients get significantly better.
Wow.
Wow, so that's amazing.
Thank God you've overcome everything you have, and especially a year and a half ago when you went through that other thing, there's clearly a reason you're still here on the earth to do some work. Clearly. Yeah.
Oh, that's so
that's
great.
Amazing.
We're not done with you yet. Your job's not done.
Clearly.
There's still some people you need to talk to.
That's right.
Amen to that. I
ConqueringArthritis.com. I love the site name too. That's great. I love that.
Yeah. Well, it has been totally delightful talking with you. I love the work you're doing in the world too.
Well, thank you so much for being on and going the extra bit of time. Hold on the line there, Barbara, and we're going to sign off the live show right now. And I want to thank everyone who's listening live. Really appreciate you guys listening. This is episode 233. And if you'd like to jump over to our forum and discuss any of the things that Barbara's been talking about, the forum is always open. It's free to sign up for an account, and a lot of the listeners do that. So feel free to do that and share what's working for you and perhaps what's not working for you.
Swap some information, some links, some books, anything.
Yes.
Get it going
and continue the discussion on there so more people can be helped. So really appreciate everybody listening live and in the chat room, and we're going to sign off now. So thanks for listening. All right. There you have it, Barbara Allen.
I think she might know a thing or two, like all of our guests.
As they all do,
As they all do.
Pretty interesting lady, huh?
Very interesting.
I love what she's doing. ConqueringArthritis.com.
Yeah. I think it's a good name. It doesn't sound too, some people are like, killcancer.com. Or, Conquering is still positive light, but you're being proactive. It's not too negative. I think it's a wonderful name.
Yeah.
Her book, I was on her site, during our interview. Her book looks fascinating, and I'm sure there are all kinds of people, obviously, that she's helped through so many different modalities. And I love that she brought in the whole spiritual aspect, because we keep hearing about the spirituality being, a main player, and maybe all diseases are considered, quote, spiritual problems.
Right. It seems like to me at least every disease has at its root cause some sort of emotional, spiritual stress, trauma, something going on there. It seems to me that if you look back at before you're diagnosed, you're always going to find some traumatic experience.
Yeah.
And it's just like the people we talk with.
Gilbert Renaud. Yeah,
Gilbert Renaud and Dr. Peter DeWitt, who both work with Recall Healing. And we mentioned Dr. Bradley Nelson and Dr. Alex Lloyd on the show earlier. But these are all shows that you want to listen to if you're interested in this whole connection between the emotions and our physical diseases, because there's definitely a tie there.
Yeah, those shows were fascinating because they just brought up, they blow your mind when you hear specific examples of what happened when it was that exact moment they could pinpoint when something turned in them to create that environment to foster disease or a problem.
Wasn't there that story that Gilbert Renaud was saying once where there was a pregnant mother?
I knew it. This is the one I always think of, the pregnant mother and the phone rings.
Yeah, well, so what happened? The pregnant mother...
She was eating peanut butter, wasn't she?
Well, she was eating peanut butter, the phone rings, and as she's eating it, she gets a call telling her that somebody in her family had died. And then it wasn't until... And so there was some sort of tie there to relationships or disconnection or something. And then so when that baby grew up at 5 years old, something in her life triggered that same emotional thing. And then that's when she became allergic to peanut butter.
The peanut allergy.
It's just
That's a
weird.
Wild concept.
Isn't that just odd?
It is, but it isn't. Like when I heard it, I'm like, what? But the more it's kind of settled in my brain, I go, that makes complete sense. I know my friends that have had diseases and struggle with certain ailments, and especially arthritis and stuff, it's always after a major, crisis in their life.
Right.
Like it's totally trackable. I mean,
Yeah.
it's definitely connected.
It's a weird thing, isn't
Yeah.
it? So when you see these types of things happen to people, and then 6 months later or a year later, they come down with a diagnosis. A lot of times we don't put two and two together because we're so disconnected from our bodies and our life and where disease comes from. We're just completely disconnected. We don't see how the connection is made like that. And so when you start looking back and trying to trace back the rabbit trail of where these traumatic things happen in your life, you can almost
pinpoint
it when you look back.
I like how she said, like, I'm glad I got to ask her the question a little bit about, because I had a couple people tell me over a period of a year that I was a very happy, angry person.
Yeah.
Do you remember that? And I said,
I remember.
Why does everyone keep telling me I'm so angry, that I'm the happiest, angriest person they've ever met?
It happened like twice or three times within a matter of a couple months, didn't it?
Right. It was very fast, and I thought, wow, this is something, one time you're like, I don't know what that means. 2 times pay attention. 3, it's okay, something's going on here. But that's why I asked her the question of, in her opinion, if she thought it was important to kind of, because the first place I went in my brain was, I got to figure this out. Something happened to me. I don't know what it is. I got to go find it.
Right.
And I kind of sought out that path, and it didn't work very well for me, as when she kind of mentioned the hands-off approach of like, I'm just going to kind of flow with this thing. It's going to come to me on a need-to-know basis. And that's what really happened. And it wasn't through, at that time, I wasn't doing yoga classes or any meditation of any sorts. I'd be just like, letting it go, driving down the road, and all of a sudden it would be like a memory would pop up that I hadn't had, that had something that, was something that mattered to me when I was 5 years old, or something I didn't feel validated in when I was in high school by a friend, or something that was said to me. It's like I wasn't digging anymore, and that's when my healing and kind of that epiphany started happening. And I think that's where a little bit of healing could take place, because I became aware without searching and digging and making something be the deal. You know what I mean?
For some people, I think digging could help, I guess.
Digging could help.
But for
again,
you,
it depends on your situation, I think.
It seemed to just come in, as long as you're open, I guess, right?
Right.
Where you're driving along and you're open to that kind of thing. It just came to you.
It really did, in a way that I never expected. A bunch of things that and it wasn't just one thing. Some people, I think Barbara would agree, are maybe if you've had a super big traumatic incident. I know a lot of people just block it out and act like it never happened, and it was a defining moment. I think sometimes you need to dig through and bust through that wall in order to even be in that space where you can receive any sort of information on how to even go about healing.
Yeah, I agree. It's interesting because when you think about everything is energy, right? Everything is vibration and energy can neither be created nor destroyed, right? So energy always has to live somewhere.
Right.
And if it is true that everything we've ever seen, everything we've ever tasted, smelled, touched, experienced, thought about, or felt in our whole life is an energetic vibration. So where is that? And so a lot of people say that we have the ability to remember what it was like when we were 6 months old, but we just can't access it. And so if that's
all in there.
Yeah, if that's the case, then all of those traumatic experiences and those stressful times in your life when you're a child and you're hearing your parents argue, or they get divorced, or someone in the family dies, all of that is somehow energetically vibrating in your body.
Yes.
And so if that's the case, then it makes sense that we would have these food allergies or some sort of physical manifestation of that energy trying to release itselp.
Wouldn't it, though? I mean, that's what it seems like, for sure.
It makes a lot of sense.
Man.
Crazy, isn't it?
It is crazy, but it's not.
Because imagine it's like with, well, I don't know if this is true. I mean, I was thinking like in the same sense, in a physical sense, if that were the case, imagine if everything you ever ate in your whole life was still on you, like you didn't go to the bathroom.
Wow.
And I guess that would be the similar thing with energy. It's just that it's not physical, so you don't get fat and you don't get sick. But
you're like Velcro. It's just sticking to you.
It's just sticking to you.
It's stuck to you.
And I think a lot of these practices that she's talking about, meditation, and the ad we ran for the Qigong, did we do an ad for that? We did, right?
We did. I think we did, yeah.
Yeah, and a lot of these things are almost like grounding yourself on the earth. If you have static electricity and you step on the grass, boom, it all just dissipates.
Right.
Or if you jump in the ocean, it just, all the static charge goes away. And that's what prayer, meditation, qigong, tai chi, that's what all that stuff does, is it dissipates all of that blocked and stored energy.
Right.
That happens on a daily basis. You know, you drive down the street and someone almost cuts you off, and then you feel that pit in your stomach, you know, and they flip you off, and you're just thinking, what the heck just happened? They almost ran into me, and then they flipped me off, right? And so
that creates anger.
Yeah, that creates anger, and that lives somewhere, right?
Yeah, that has to go somewhere. You're right.
And so if we think about it like food, it's just that it doesn't have any physical mass to it. Imagine all that food you ate your whole life, when Twinkies you ate when you were 5, still being in your stomach.
You're right. It goes somewhere.
No wonder why there's such a component. There's such an energetic component to our illness. You know? Crazy, huh?
Wow. So talk about like the same way that, you might have a cupcake sitting in your intestines from when you were at a 5-year-old birthday party, and that needs to be cleared out through colonics, cleanses, things like that.
Yeah.
Obviously, the emotional stuff, if it is just sticking there, it's just going to stick there and then keep collecting. You're gonna attract more of it unless you're constantly dumping and cleaning out too.
Yeah. So it's almost like an energetic cleanse or something like that.
Right. Because we're human. I mean, we're going to have stuff, even if you cleared out everything somehow on an emotional level you've had since you were a child. You know, unfortunately, the next 50 years, we're going to have more of those. It's not like you do it once and you're done, you know?
Yeah.
But she was fascinating.
I liked what she's doing. ConqueringArthritis.com. And what you can do.
She's a good woman.
I think she has a forum on her site as well, just like we do. And you can go on there and participate, talk to other people who are dealing with arthritis, and you can contact her via Skype. And I would suggest you do that, even if you have osteo, rheumatoid. I mean, a lot of these arthritises, I mean, are very, very similar. Even though they're different, the osteo is different than the rheumatoid and the reactive. They're very similar in terms of what's the cause of these things.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, if you're going through any of these problems, I just want to tell people to don't give up. Don't stop, and don't ever give up. I can't imagine how hard it is.
Yeah.
But if you're willing to put in the work like she did, I think it was 4.5 years before she found what really worked for her. And for each person, it's going to be different. And I
love how she addressed that. It is different for each person. It's not like a one-size-fits-all with anything in life, with anything in health.
Right. Everything is going to be different for each person. And I just want to encourage all of you guys to not give up and to really be a scientist and try to figure out, like she did with those 2 ingredients in her toothpaste.
Right. Who saw that coming?
Yeah. So it's like being a detective and really just not giving up, because I think of it like this. If you overcome your disease, arthritis or whatever it is, in a natural way, or, you know, in a way, I mean, imagine how many people you could help.
Yeah.
Imagine how many people, you know, if you do something similar to what she's doing, you could be on radio shows, you could be on TV shows doing appearances and helping people. I mean, imagine the impact you could have on the world if you don't give up and you get through it.
Well, imagine if we all gave up over. I mean, I've had stuff I've wanted to give up on 1,000 times, you know, and you have too. It's like we would be robbing the world of our own different talents and gifts, and just encouragement we have to give to others to help them fulfill their purpose here on life. And
exactly.
I'm so grateful that Barbara is still here, because she sounds like she went through everything but getting struck by lightning, really, to stop her. And she has a message that's obviously meant to get out to the masses. So
yeah, definitely.
I'm super grateful. And everyone, I encourage everyone highly, like you do, to just don't lose the hope.
Don't lose the hope.
There's always hope.
And go on to conqueringarthritis.com. And this is episode 233. We'll have a link to her website, as well as all the different shows we talked about on this episode 233. We'll have a link to her book too. You can get the book either on our website or on her website, and we'll put a link there for that. And also, if you have any further questions and you want to find out more, jump on over to our forum. It's free to sign up for an account. And what I'll do is, on this show page 233, I'll put a link to the exact thread in the forum where you can continue the conversation. And so you can share with people what's worked for you, what's not working for you, and you can consult with people, help people, ask questions, and all that kind of stuff. So don't forget to sign up to our forum. We'd love to have you part of that, so that more people can be empowered and helped overcome their issues. So that's a big thing. That's a big reason why we created that forum.
Yes.
So also I want to let you know too, if you would like to support us, all of our shows are free, and what we do is we accept donations, and we gratefully accept those. Those help so much. And we also have a link on our website to Amazon if you want to go there and make purchases, extremehealthradio.com/Amazon. Every single time you make a purchase,
You could buy anything.
you could buy anything.
You could buy a wiener dog.
Can you buy a wiener dog?
I don't think so. I don't think they sell pets on Amazon.
You could buy blankets and shoes and
socks.
And socks.
And toothpaste without corn.
That's right, you can.
If you test for it on the alcat.
Or if you could buy the alcat test on it.
I was going to say.
But that's a great way to support us, and it really does help a lot. So if you can, the tricky thing is to remember to do it before you make your purchases on Amazon, and tell your friends about that too. And also, we have a store with tons of products. I think we have about 50 products or 45 products on there now. What we'll be adding to, you'll find the Qigong course and the sauna and all that stuff that we did commercials for on there. So that's another great way to support us too. And that way we can keep the show free. So you could send the link to your friends, and your friends don't have to pay to listen to it. So that's just, part of our service to you.
Yeah, we really appreciate everything you guys have been doing and continue to do, and it's the only thing that's keeping us going and keeping it possible. So
yes,
we rely heavily on you guys, and we hate asking for any kind of anything, but it's the reality of putting information out there.
Yeah, that's the reality of not charging.
Yeah, exactly.
Got to rely on each and every listener. So if you can take the time to do a little donation or something like that, that would be great. So don't forget to check out our upcoming shows. We've got tons of great guests coming up every week, Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, 9 a.m. Pacific. And I think it's about time for me to go make a smoothie.
I am so hungry.
And I'm going to get my one more whey on.
I'm going to get my one more whey on before you. I'm going to beat you. I take the headphones off first.
All right, guys. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll catch you on the next episode.
Thank you for listening to this episode.
It's time to go for now, but our mission does not end with this show.
Justin and Kate will be back with another interview packed full of ideas, discoveries, and unique ways to regain your health.
Head on over to extremehealthradio.com/subscribe and instantly download our free gift too that contains cutting-edge strategies to start making healthy lifestyle changes today.
No material on this blog is intended to suggest that you should not seek professional medical care. Always work with qualified medical professionals, even as you educate yourself in the field of live food nutrition and alternative medicine. I'm not a doctor, nor am I offering readers or listeners medical advice of any kind. None of the information offered here should be interpreted as a diagnosis of any disease, nor an attempt to treat or prevent any disease or condition. While information in this blog and during this podcast is discussed in the context of numerous